everybody, I wanted to do this short video on casting this skull as kind of like a quick filler piece, but we ran into some problems. So this is what happens to plaster of Paris when you bake it. It gets brittle like chalk. I don't know if you can see this, but I mean, it doesn't take anything, and this stuff just crumbles to dust, turns into powder. So I'm not sure how these other people have gotten their their lost PLA stuff to work. But I mean, you can see this whole thing is just completely falling apart, and that right there was the infill percentage on that skull. So here's the other pieces. I mean, the rest of this stuff, it barely started to melt out, and this was kept in an oven for at 450 degrees for almost 12 hours. So hardly any progress was made on this thing. So we're gonna try this a different way. I'm gonna get this out of here. That's junk. I'm gonna throw this out. See, this here is chicken wire. Here is the new skull that I printed, and it is hollow. I cut the tabs off the jaw and cut holes in through the skull and hot glued the two together. I then took a 3/4 inch diameter rod and I heated it up with a torch and pierced the backside so that I got a perfectly round hole for the funnel to mount to. So now this skull is completely hollow. You can see what it looks like. And I am going to use the chicken wire to reinforce the plaster of Paris so that it is not as brittle. And because this is hollow, I hopefully won't have to melt any of it out, and we can try to just fill this thing and see what happens. I'm giving it a big feeder so that all the shrinking that occurs will happen up here, and then we can cut that off after it's done. So let's get to cutting some chicken fencing and see if we can't get something to turn out here. Okay, I didn't lose too much space, maybe just enough though to totally screw this up. I don't think so. So it's gonna have to sit in there on a little bit of a weird angle, and then I'm thinking I'll take a bigger soup can or a cardboard tube and then cast this funnel at a different time. So let me get the plaster of Paris set up, and I'll turn the camera back on that. Okay, so I thought I had the camera running, but I didn't. So we're going to let this stuff set up a little bit before we start pouring it in, because it has a tendency, when you first mix it, it is incredibly water-like, very, very water-like. I don't know how well this print is sealed up. I don't know if it's 100% sealed, so I want to eliminate as much plaster penetrating the mold as I possibly can. So I'm going to let this stuff set up for, I'm going to probably set a timer for 4 minutes. Don't worry, not going to make you watch that. But I'll turn it back on when I start filling this basin back up, and hopefully, I'm hoping it gets to have the consistency. I want to work with it when it has the consistency of pancake batter. I know that it's probably not going to be great for bubble releasing and stuff like that, and since I don't have a vibrator, you know, we're just going to do it like I do everything. I'm going to fly by the seat of my pants. We're going to make it work as best we can, and then we're going to see where the chips fall. Okay, so I don't know if you can see this or not. That is the consistency of my plaster of Paris. Moves, not totally free-flowing. Let's see how this stuff does. It's pretty lumpy because this stuff's really hard to mix properly and thoroughly. And that is amazing to me. 4 cups of powder and half a cup of water, and what you're left with is essentially nothing. That is amazing to me. Look at that last little drip. So now I got a pretty good idea of what I'm going to need to do this. I probably should have thought about this a little bit better. I'd like for this to not sit on the bottom. It's going to make it difficult to cast. I was much smarter than this the last time I did it. I hot glued that stuff to it. I'm gonna go get a spatula. Okay, so this is how I've got this set up, just so you can see it. It's in a steel 5-gallon bucket, and it's sitting on top of a 6-inch socket that I just happen to have laying around. I know it's not the most sturdy thing, but I think it's going to be good enough, because I'm just using it. I'm putting it in this just in case there's any residual steam inside of here and this thing wants to explode. So I'm going to be fully garbed, head to toe, leather apron, full arm leather gloves, and a face shield before I attempt to pour this. So I'm going to set this on the floor and get this out of the way for now. Okay, so I'm trying to be as responsible as I can possibly be with liquid propane and everything else. So I'm going to light this and then light the burner. Try not to melt all the hair off my arms, which happens frequently. There we go. Alright, so this thing's cooled to the touch in about 20 minutes. As you can see where my holes were that bled out. Had a really bad blowout right there. It must have been an air pocket or something at the bottom of the jaw. And right in here where I ran out of plaster of Paris. I should just quit being so cheap and finish it right instead of trying to scrape and scrimp. So we're going to soak this thing in water overnight and see if we can't get this plaster of Paris to soften up and break apart more easily. That's also a bad sign. There's lots of air bubbles coming out of that mold, which tells me that a lot of the cavities didn't fill with aluminum. So we're going to hope for the best. This might have been a total belly flop and a complete and utter waste of my time, which wouldn't surprise me in the least bit. Okay, so it's time for the big reveal, even though I have a feeling it's going to be an epic belly flop. So soaking this plaster of Paris in water hasn't done anything. I mean, slightly softened up the outside of this thing, but that's it. So I'm going to drain the water off this thing, get it onto a cardboard mat, and get my tools, and then I will So this is it with the feeder cut off of it. It's not some of my better work. This is really disappointing because I had so much success with sand casting. This is a kick in the face. But I'm gonna still hang on to it, clean it up, wire wheel it some, and then put it on my desk. Maybe tack the jaw in place set it on my desk this way, that way nobody can see it. Unfortunately, the skull got the best definition on this side. This side must have collapsed under the heat and didn't fill properly, and that's what we were left with. But all in all, I don't think it was that bad. Like I said, I appreciate you guys watching, checking out the channel and seeing what's going on, and I look forward to doing more projects in the future. Alright, see you guys later.